So for the first matchup today, we have yet another Vampire Coast build up against the Wood Elves. We are continuing to try to rush, since I think I get how the deck gunner builds work. So, oh nice, that's good latch dog. Anyways, yeah, I'm very used to running deck gunner builds, and I think we're good enough with them where I don't really need to do them anymore. Except unless it's in a tournament, of course. So instead, we're going to practice our rush because oftentimes I have a pretty hard time here. Wood Elves have the advantage because they're mobile and can kite back. And their new units too really help against scurvy dogs. So in general, I think you're slightly disadvantaged when you rush his coast. Unless the Wood Elves decide to bring the rush to you, in which case it could be interesting. So immediately we want to pull back our Sirens so that they don't die. And then we're going to be using our dogs to cycle charge these Dryads, sort of like our own mini version of cavalry. Oh nice, there's some Way Watchers over there. And we really want our dogs to shut them down. We have our Sirens too. Should do pretty well. And they're shooting our Mourngulls. Not a terrible choice. But means that we can begin closing in on them. Oh, some shots come in and dodge them. And as long as we dodge all our shots, we should be set. In fact, let's see here. So it looks like a volley comes towards my dogs, but we're ready for it. And an advantage of actually playing Wood Elves is that you have a very nice sense of timing on when the Way Watchers will even be firing. So it's not too hard to dodge them. You can sort of predict it. It's also really nice, voicing his ammunition. And we've won that sort of center fight over there. Our Sirens aren't afraid of cavalry, and they can just go on and continue chase these Way Watchers as this center fight gets underway. There's a Drycha over there, but not really a problem. We can simply get Noctilus in there, and then just shoot her to death with some pistols. She doesn't do a lot of damage, so we're not too worried about just going into a straight up fight. My unit of Sirens and Mourngulls, much cheaper than this group of units, are shutting them down by just warding them off. They're just chasing them, and the Way Watchers won't be able to do too much damage. Let's see, War Dancers here can get shut down by a Doggo charge, and they're already routing, which is good for us. And I guess we'll throw down a heal. Should do good. Let's see, I forget what name that spell is, but my opponent throws it down. Does a little bit of damage, but mostly a whiff. Works for us. And let's see, let's cast a Wraith Storm on infantry. So the dogs are going to continue doing well. You control left click to leave one dog on the unit, and then you right click with your other dogs to get them wherever they need to be. But that's working out pretty well. And let's see, I think should be good. It's very important that the dogs live, more important than usual even, because we need them to kill Way Watchers. Now, even though Way Watchers can do quite a bit of damage to them, it's not actually too bad because you can dodge with your scurvy dogs, which will use up most of their ammunition. And after they have no ammo, it's all fine and dandy from there. So let's see, Way Watchers are finally here, so we can just send our Sirens onto them, chase them off once again. We'll continue chasing off units with our dogs around the map. Let's see, it looks like I have one unaccounted for. He's in here, the blob. So we'll pull them back. And now that the Way Watchers are a bit busy, we can use our Rotting Leviathan to help in the fight once again. See, now the Way Watchers are actually running a bit low on ammunition. It will be pretty bad for them. To another, whatever that spell is called. I don't know how I'm forgetting its name. It's actually one of my favorite spells. But anyways, another one goes down. It doesn't do too much damage, and our Depth Guard are still healthy. So they'll be healing up. The Way Watchers, too, are about to get caught. And our Scurvy Dogs will be able to jump in on them, while these pistol mobs go ahead and just start shooting them to death. It'd also be a nice time for an Overcast Nahek. But sadly, we do not have the Winds of Magic for it, which is a bit of a shame. But it doesn't really matter. Maybe not. No, probably not. So we'll just continue to chase them, and we'll just save up our magic for that Nahek. Let's just take quick stock of the map to make sure I don't have any units anywhere. It looks like that's a no. So we'll continue to micro our dogs. The Rotting Leviathan is doing its job by fighting those lords. And we're not too worried if the Rotting Leviathan takes a ton of damage. That is because there aren't too many targets for it in the end game. And Noctilus will be able to duel out these two lords over here. Now, we still don't want to be taking free damage on the Rotting Leviathan, though, so let's just do a bit of cycle charging. And the dogs on top of the Glade Captain should do pretty well. I'm sort of expecting a spell to come down. But, yep, there we go. So, we can just pull our dogs out of the way to make sure that they don't die. We'll likely be losing our Depth Guard, which is a bit of a shame, but they've done well. They did a bit of fighting. There aren't too many targets left for them. So it should be just fine. We'll save our Wraithstorm in case we need it. And now it's all about finishing off this game. The only way we can lose here is if our dogs die. But everything else should die to them. Way Watchers are running out of ammo. And it's just going to be Noctilus against Drycha for a bit. Ooh, there were actually some Glade Guard hiding in the forest that came back. A little bit dangerous, but we get a nice charge in there, and they should be terrified in just a second. A few Way Watcher shots come in. That's no threat. And we get a rout from the Wood Elves. GG. Nice. So, let's see. Let me just take a picture. There we go. Yeah, you can see again, always take Scurvy Dogs, especially against elves. Pay for themselves almost every time, just control them well. How did our Sirens do? They didn't actually get that much damage, but I think the tanking that they did was invaluable. Chasing off the Way Watchers for most of the game worked out really well for us. And then we just, we just carried it out with mostly the dogs, I guess. Very nice damage dealers. Oh, it's still recording, oh god. So, next up we have our Beastmen game against the Dowie. Our opponent actually counterpicked himself. And we brought a pretty standard build, I think. We got Cygor summons, which actually costs as much as Manticore summons now. That's insane. We have a medium infantry front, some cavalry support, and the Butchers of Kalkengard. Those guys will be able to break down the dwarf boxes and front line. So what are these cannons? And yeah, we have harpies to chase off stuff like gyrocopters. So now begins the slow advance. Cannons are firing in onto me, but playing patient can be rewarded. So getting these harpies over on the flanks. We don't want the cannons to be firing on them too much. Although with this sort of setup, it's going to be a little bit hard to actually get the engage down. Okay, so the gyrocopters are moving in towards my shaman. They will get pushed back by harpies though. So they're not too worrisome. Let's see, I think this guy's money. He has rangers in the middle there, almost for sure. So let's start getting into that back line, and we'll also begin chasing off those gyrocopters. So there's some rangers in the back here. We should expect them to reveal themselves in just a second. And there we go. So we want to make sure that our harpies don't take too many shots from them. But at the same time, we're trying to stop these gyrocopters being such a pain. I think Mogar, though, will be the best option versus the Rangers. And as soon as the fighting gets underway, I think it should be good. The Mogar is going to rush in. Gonna summon. And we have our cavalry in the back. We don't want them to die to Iron Drakes. We're going to send our Harpies on top of them. And now it's all about getting our engagement timings correct. I think we could have gotten the timing a little bit better. But this isn't the worst situation. See, there are some miners here at the ready. And as soon as they turn to throw their bombs at my Bestigors, you can move in their infantry to take them out. We actually do go in a little bit too close to the sun though, and we get burned for it, which is a bit painful, but we're doing okay. The infantry continues to turn, and we might actually be able to shut them down from the back. We're going to move in our harpies. Gonna move in our chariot, and there we go. So they should be shut down now. They won't be throwing any more of those bombs. And our minotaurs are just going to stay nice and far away from any slayers. So the slayers are back here killing my razor gores, but we've compromised the front line of the Dowie now. And this is a huge collapse. At this point, it's going to be very hard for the Dowie to come back, since a lot of their tools get extra damage in have been shut down. Some gyrocopters have even moved in. Try and stop my archers from firing. But doesn't look like that will be enough. There is a Gotrek in here, though, who could prove to be a bit of a problem to kill, but our archers will be able to shut him down. For now, though, they're going to be killing the rest of the slayers. And let's see, Butchers of Kalkengard can go here, and my chariot can move in to support the infantry fight. The slayers are still being annoying, but I think probably be seeing army losses soon. That will at least get Belagar off. And what is on my mind right now is the best way of dealing with Gotrek. So there we go. We do hit army losses, or our opponent does. And it's just a bunch of slayers now. So there is a little bit of you have to control a little bit properly usually to make sure that you don't accidentally lose the game. But in this case, we just have so much army, we can probably just kill Gotrek with our Bestigors. So let's send them in. Gotrek isn't especially good against infantry, so that's a nice fight for us. And it's just going to be, it's just going to be a little bit of waiting. Let's keep our chariot out of there, and we can actually summon a Cygor to get a bit of extra damage on Gotrek. Going to turn off fire at will to make sure we don't friendly fire our troops. And with all that out of the way, this should be game. If you want to speed it up a bit, you can cycle charge with your lords. And you can see here that even though single entities can sometimes be hard to actually finish off, they're not always very threatening, especially when you have this much of a lead. I'll just be taking another bite of my food while we wait for this game to end. Go check can keep healing, which is a bit annoying, but you know, whatever. I guess you guys can ask questions if you have any. I am free to answer while we wait for this. Does narrating and thinking while playing these PvP games make it a lot harder? It sort of comes naturally to me. So it's not especially difficult, but I do notice I play worse. Hey, there we go. Alright. So a pretty standard game. We just really outflanked his forces, and his front line wasn't very strong. So, pretty easy win. So, we're playing Vampire Coast against the Vampire Count, a matchup that I've been trying to figure out for a while now. I don't have a full understanding of it, I'd say, but some experiments have proven well. Before, I would go for a mass gun build, going for 5 handguns and 3 pistol mobs. This was really good against the dragon style of play that Vampire Counts would bring to kill rotting leviathans. But now they've sort of caught on. Instead, Vampire Counts players, they tend to go for a lot of anti-infantry. And to counter that, we've brought Depth Guard to kill Crypt Ghouls, and a Gunnery Wight with Scab Scrath. We'll be doing a lot of damage to a ton of infantry. So all we gotta do is line things up, and we're not too worried about lining up our own groups of infantry, since Sirens are much more common here. If we do see White Kings though, we will have to be a little bit more careful. Oh, I think we're about ready now. See, we want guard mode off of Luther. We'll probably turn off fire at will too. So good luck, have fun to our opponent. And he actually gets started right as we're ready. So let's get into the game. It looks like he has actually bought White Kings, which is interesting. Which means we just have to spread out our infantry a tiny bit more. As for his air force, he has some Vargeists and some Fellbats. And on foot, he has brought Vlad von Karstein, pushing for that Foot Lord meta, surely. We're gonna see how well that works. Now, they are actually pretty hardy for his handgun fire. So that's good for our opponent. And to honor the attacking rules, we do have to advance towards our opponent, at least until our bats get engaged. So it looks like our opponent actually groups up on some of our bats, which should let us get a nice breath attack in on that group of units there. And we see it actually does some pretty nice damage. We'll throw a debuff on the Vargeists, and hopefully we can kill him. He actually pulls out though. And it avoids my Hornswaggle. Sorta sucks. A Scab Scrath doesn't actually do that much damage to my zombies. I think it would have been better if he started it there. But enough of that. Let's see if we can kill us some White Kings. Vlad is much harder to kill, so we won't be trying to take him out. And we're also going to move our Depth Guard up now. So we have the White King moving up. They'll have some debuffs. And we get the fighting started over there. Going to pull through our halberds so that they can peel for our guns. And I see some nice Scab Scrath opportunities coming up. Those are just skeleton warriors who are much less important here. And Crypt Ghouls can fight my Depth Guards. So Scabscrath, we want to position it so that the edge is right at where the units are, and then I'll move the rest of the distance to do that damage. So you can see there, dealing about 1,000,000 damage to those crypt ghouls. A really nice Scabscrath there. Let's see, our handguns are getting compromised. We're going to try to make them fire onto what's it? We're gonna make them fire onto these Vargeists. We're doing that because when your guns are compromised, it is it's better for them to be shooting upwards. It'll get them past any infantry. Yeah, it'll help them shoot past infantry, which is very important. So you want to keep our casters safe, and we don't want Luther to die. We want to be killing that White King though. So we're going to reduce the cooldowns on Vlad. And then go in for another sniping attempt on that White King. We'll bring in the Gunnery White too, because we're getting ready for an overcast Nahek. Our gun lines are continuing to fall down, but there weren't many targets for them anyways, so I don't think it's super important that they stay alive this run around. We're continuing to try to kill the White King. He is a pretty important target to kill, and but Black Knights are moving in. Let's just get a pistol summoned behind the enemy lines. This is a very common tactic that you'll see me use, because they'll just be shooting into the backs of these guys, and if my opponent doesn't respond, it means that they will be getting lots and lots of damage. So there we go. White King is nearly out, and I think just some pistol shots should really be able to finish him off. I'm looking for my next Scabscrath opportunity here, and you know what? I think we can afford to wait. Let's see. So it looks like the White King's finally down, so let's move our Gunnery White out of the way and peel for him by sending in Luther. We'll also want to not get too hasty with our bats, and that is because they can be used to stop knights and so on from running away, which is very important. So we're going to be keeping them nice and safe, so we can use them opportunistically. Our depth guard are continuing to do pretty well. I'm liking that, and I think we have a pretty nice opportunity to just start sniping Vlad to death. Luther has a lot of ammunition in this situation, thanks to my Gunnery White. So we might as well use that ammo while we can. Luther's just gonna sit in the air, and Vlad is actually reaching his heal cap now, which means that he is gonna be having a rough time when he can't continue to heal himself. We also have Hornswaggle and Taunt, and I think we can use that to our advantage by double debuffing Vlad. That'll bring his melee defense down to basically nothing, and with the charge from Luther, he should be taking quite a bit of damage. Let's see, we don't want our depth guard to die, so we're going to throw down a big heal. Keep an eye on those knights. We don't want them to be charging too much. So we're just gonna be, you know what, let's throw in some bats to block that charge for us. So there we go. We actually mistimed that a bit, so they don't stall out as much as I would have hoped, but they still stall out. So now we just got to figure out where we want to use our breath attack and where we want to use the rest of our abilities. I expect the fight to go on for at least another while, so I'm being very careful to make sure that we get as much value off of our abilities as possible. The Gunnery White is going to continue shooting Vlad, and I think cycle charging him is a good idea here. I think maximizing the damage per second will do us much better than waiting around. And we have to be careful not to disengage Luther once we run out of depth guard. I could spawn another unit of zombies, but instead I'm going to heal the depth guard, since as soon as Vlad is dead, it means that there won't be actually much here to do damage to the depth guard, because everything else is pretty squishy and low tier, and doesn't do a lot of damage. There are actually some grave guard though, so a little bit of a misread there. But anyways, we're just going to continue hunting down Vlad, giving ammunition to Luther. And as soon as he's down, I think that should be game, but man, is he hard to kill. We do have our guns, which helps a lot, because the guns have a 100% chance to hit if you are close enough. And between Luther and the gunnery wight, we do manage to finally kill Vlad. So it's just the depth guard left. We do have multiple models engaged, which means that Luther can indeed disengage. And what he's going to do is he's just going to lay down a nice breath attack, which should finish off the game. Going to throw that down on top of the grave guard. There we go, and it actually whiffs pretty hard too, in fact, which is pretty painful. And we don't have any more breath attacks, so Luther's going to engage once again. The vampire count's units are crumbling, and we're really we're waiting on this Scabscrath. We have 33 seconds, but I don't think that's actually enough for this White King. His time is limited, but at the very least he can give ammunition to Luther, and Luther will be regenerating in this combat. He's not the best against Graveguard, but we'll be fine. Things are crumbling. We have the balance of power, and there could actually be army losses soon before this game finishes up. It's really nice that Luther does have this ammunition though, because each shot can kill about 2 Graveguard, I think. Maybe even 3, I'm not sure. And that extra damage is very important. In fact, if he didn't have that extra ammo, I think we might have actually lost this situation. But it looks like we'll be fine. I've also learned that I was a little bit too patient with my Scabscraths. Not realizing that they were a Graveguard meant that I actually didn't get to use one of my Scabscraths. And given how much damage they do, that is a pretty big misplay. Hello, Black Range. Nice to see you. Is the new patch a big nerf for a Vampire Coast? I presume you're asking. I think it's a pretty big nerf, but I think Vampire Coast is still about S tier, or A tier at the very, like, at the absolute worst. I think they're A tier, because before Vampire Coast would have a lot of extra money at the end of army creation, which means that you know, now that bombers cost 50 more, that extra money is gone. One big playstyle that is a big nerf though is to handguns. Their models got reduced a lot, and even though they do the same amount of damage, because there's fewer models, they don't slow down infantry like they used to, and it's a lot easier to get in on top of them. The lower HP is really bad too, because they just can't keep shooting when they're in combat. But that's pretty balanced and not too bad. So for this game, we're playing as the Beastmen against the mighty Chaos, and we've brought a Minotaur build. We're going to be cycle charging them in and out of our front lines, and keeping them safe from horsemen by using our Ungor Raiders. We also have a single unit of Razor Gore Herd to hopefully be able to chase things off and maybe pick away at the fringes. I'm going to be trying to focus to keep them alive. Let's see how they do. Good luck, have fun to our opponent, and let's see what they have. Let's see. So you're saying as greenskins, you're having a hard time dealing with the ROR stags. I've heard that they're pretty strong right now, mostly because magic damage doesn't really do a lot. But I think, let's see, greenskins don't have fireball, But Spirit Leech does at least okay against them. You'll be killing about one model. Of course, that's not huge. But if you can mither them, or maybe catch them with your cavalry, or shoot them with Wolf Rider archers, you could be in a little bit of a better position. But they're hard to deal with for sure. Foot of Gork, maybe. They have a lot of HP though. Anyways, our opponent gives us a U2. So let's see how this goes. I heard Fate of Yuna is actually pretty bad versus Stags. They don't have a lot of models, which means that they take a lot less damage. Alright, so it looks like this guy may be a little bit intoxicated. Interesting, but that's no excuse. Let's get into it. You actually see, there we go, a lot of his units are over the ridge, appearing now. It looks like he has a bunch of Chaos Warriors, Marauders, some newly buffed Chosen units, and a nice grouping of Horsemen. They will need to screen against my charges though, so let's see how well our opponent does that. And there we go, he does successfully my Centaurs away. Not before we get a few throwing axes though. Good for us. And does he have skirmish mode on? He doesn't. Interesting. Although that was a bad charge for us. We did not need to do that. So let's just pull away. See if we can recover from those losses. We didn't actually lose too many troops, thankfully. But yeah, we want to be shooting these horsemen with our archers. So we'll turn on guard mode to make sure that they don't advance once the horsemen back up. And it looks like those horsemen might even, they almost charged straight into my infantry lines. Which would have been interesting. But they pull back, so good on our opponent. And it's just going to be a lot of cycle charging now. Let's see, some Chaos Spawn can fight the Butchers of Kalkengard. And let's see, Sigvald is going to be a little bit of a pain. So let's move back our troops to make sure that they don't die to him outright. And we can also begin getting some AP damage in on those Chosen with halberds. Let's see, let's continue to shoot those horsemen. And any dogs that come our way will be able to be pushed back by our troops. Let's see, this Sorcerer of Death is actually getting a little bit too feisty. But he gets out of there and won't be punished for it. Some dogs are hanging around in the back, so let's just keep an eye on them. And I think we're pretty happy taking the fight here. So we're going to charge into them. Bring in our butchers, or our minotaurs too. Yep, just keep up with that cycle charging. Let's see, there's a nice group of infantry here too, which is nice for the Chaos Spawn. But our lines are crumbling apart a bit. I think we could be cycle charging a little bit more. So screwing up there means that our archers are getting compromised a bit. We really want them to be shooting the Chaos Spawn. Let's see if we can get that started. And these Minotaurs are taking some damage. Let's pull them through our infantry once again. Charge into the Chaos Warriors. And keep shooting the Chaos Spawn. Let's see, those dogs are out of the battlefield, so we can bring our skirmishers back. And I think I haven't really been using my Winds of Magic super effectively. Our Minotaurs on the right flank are also taking a beating. And I think it's time we get a giant summon over here to try and support this fight. Those Chosen with halberds too are very scary. And probably be good to get some throwing axes in on top of them. Butchers of Kalkengard have taken quite a bit of damage, but they can begin regenerating. A small blessing for us. But this could be rough. Let's pull our troops back in. And get ready for some more cycle charging. Bring these guys out. And we're going to bring them in to kill off those Chaos Marauders on the side there. Let's see, we're going to pull back Mogre. So he doesn't die to Sigvald. And throw down another AoE, which should hit those guys pretty hard. Yeah, our other unit of Centaurs is done chasing off the dogs. That's nice. And Sigvald is hunting down Mogr. So we don't want that to happen. And we're going to be pulling Mogr through our infantry to keep him safe. The Chaos Warriors with halberds are coming in. And you know what? If we can keep Sigvald busy by just running away, I think that will be worth it. Ooh, nice. We can get some good rear charges here. Just have to be ready to pull them out so that they don't stay in the fight too long against the Chaos Warriors. Let's see. This is also a really nice time for a Braze Scream. There we go. Actually get some pretty nice damage there. But our archers are getting compromised. Our Minotaurs are taking a lot of damage, and the balance of power is swinging back towards the Chaos side. Let's continue running back and continue cycle charging. But that's really all we got. We don't have any extremely heavy hitters here, and our infantry is getting outclassed pretty hard. Let's see, Sigvald's doing really well, and the skirmishers in the back been able to do quite a bit of damage. We only have one Minotaur unit left fighting currently. Have to hope the other ones come back. And let's see if we can get our archers to keep firing. Our opponent actually pulls back, surprisingly enough, which I think is a bit of a misplay. You could probably go for a killing blow here, but a moment of respite for us is very much appreciated, and we'll be using it to get as much regeneration as possible. So let's continue firing. And pulling back, let's see, we do still have some throwing axes. But man, this is rough. Let's see. Not sure we can really win this, but we're gonna try as hard as we can. Let's see, the skirmishers are getting a lot of damage in. Let's get a charge in. And continue to pull out. Let's see, we have another Braze Scream. So, let's see, we're gonna go for a Hail Mary. Let's get our spears in over here to clump them up as much as possible and hopefully get a big Braze Scream to kill all of these elite infantry units. Sigvald is being a bunch of, doing a lot of damage. Let's see if this Braze Scream does okay. It does very okay, but not better than that. So we're going to pull back again. And you know what? I think we just need some really lucky hits to kill Sigvald now. Other than that, there's not much else to do. These Chosen with halberds are near unkillable. So unless we get some extremely lucky hits, we'll be calling it a game here. Tormentor's Sword on... Oh, you guys are still talking about the Greenskin verse. What's it? Verse Wood Elf matchup. It's fun. Okay, yeah, there we go. Balance of power is swinging towards our opponent, so GG. Defeating us with the mighty Drunken Fist Chaos build. Nice. So I think my army didn't really feel like it had what it needed to kill heavy infantry like these Chosen. So I'm not sure. I think this army probably isn't optimal here. Of course, Minotaurs can keep charging into them, but they're not too great. Yeah, our opponent said he was drunk earlier. So apparently being drunk gave him power. But yeah, let's see. The Chaos Spawn were also just a huge pain to deal with. So good on them. Our opponent played well there. At least he took a good build. So that's all the games we have for today. We're going to be moving on to the speedrun section now. So for anyone who's just here for quick battles, thank you very much for watching. And let's see, yeah, you can follow and sub. Should be very much appreciated. So that's it. Oh man, it's still